Alias Investigations. This is Jessica Jones. Oh, don't worry. I'm on the case. How's it going, everybody? I'm back for another character spotlight for the one and only Jessica Jones. So this is a character that I've really fallen in love with. She's a queen in her own right, and I've come to really love her. So thought I would do this video to just share a little bit of information about her, for those of you who don't know. So Jessica Jones was created by Brian Michael Bendis, and this was her first official debut in her own run, this Alias run. I believe it's 28 issues, but it comes in 4 volumes. So it's definitely worth picking up if you want to get started in reading about Jessica Jones. I mean, I might want to warn you, it's very explicit because she's well, she doesn't take any crap from anyone, so there's a lot of vulgar and cussing. So if you're not into that, then Jessica Jones may not be for you. But I really love her character, despite how much she cusses and how much she drinks and whatever. I just think that she's a queen and she deserves a lot more love than what people give her. So anyway, even though her background, her origin story isn't the most exciting in the world, it's her powers consist of, well, in the comics she can fly, but over time, when she doesn't use her powers as often, she starts to lose her ability to fly. So for example, in the TV show on Netflix, she says to Trish that she can't fly anymore. She just kind of jumps whenever she needs to go somewhere fast. So, but her powers are pretty interesting. But I mean, I know at some point she calls herself Power Woman as opposed to Power Man, who is Luke Cage. They kind of have a serious relationship in the comics, and they also have something going in the TV show, but unfortunately we don't get to see that. But if they ever bring Jessica Jones back in the MCU, I really hope that they touch more on that. But anyway, there has been one constant in Jessica's life where it's deeply traumatized her, and that is this man right here. This is I'll probably butcher his name, but Zebediah Kilgrave, also known as Purple Man. And if you watch the TV show, you notice purple is a huge theme. It's the main color in that TV show that's prominent as opposed to everything else. But Purple Man, he's actually a very interesting villain because, first of all, he can bend anyone's will and make anyone do anything that he wants just by telling him what to do. And for example, in the TV show, there's one part in season 1 where he's in the streets of New York City. I think it's Central Park, and there are these street vendors that sell those magazines and stuff like that. So he walks up to one of them and starts reading a magazine or something, and he's there for quite a while, and the guy says, you can't just stand here. So Kilgrave turns around and says, you see that coffee? Throw it in your face. And the guy does it, and it ends up burning his face because it's hot coffee. So, I mean, if even just the simplest things like that, it makes him pretty dangerous. And Jessica experiences like so much worse things than anyone probably ever has. And you can see that when we're watching the show, because it's very traumatizing for her, and we see that. And I think Kristen Ritter did an awesome job portraying that. So basically what happens, just to put it like briefly, Jessica gets well, not captured, but mind controlled by Kilgrave for, I think it was 8 months. And like she was telling Luke Cage like everything that happened to her when she was under the spell of Kilgrave or Purple Man. And she was like, she had no escape for 8 months, and I can't even imagine everything that happened. But Kilgrave was very like nasty towards her. I mean, even though she said that, well, in the comics he didn't do anything like sexually towards her, but I know in the TV show they say, or she said, that he raped her. But in this story, he didn't. He just made her watch him as he slept with a bunch of other women. So I know they did change a few things in this show, but it was still very interesting. So if you're looking to get into reading Jessica Jones, I would highly recommend picking up this run by Brian Michael Bendis. And I'll be honest with you guys, I had no idea who Jessica Jones was when the show came out. And when I saw it on Netflix back in 2015, I was like, this is really interesting. I have no idea who this character is, but I like her. I mean, she's just, for one, she's a PI, a private investigator, so I think that job is really cool. She follows people around, takes pictures of them, and then if anyone pisses her off, she just uses her powers. And I know, and there is one point in the comics where she goes out with the Avengers, and she's known as Jewel. So that's what she looked like at some point. And then I know she went rogue for a while and was acting as vigilante, and she was known as was it Huntress? I think so. I'm still learning myself about her, so bear with me. And then she obviously meets Luke Cage, probably her soulmate, and they end up having a daughter together who's known as Danielle, who they named after Danny Rand, aka Iron Fist. So she actually has a lot of connections with other Marvel characters, mainly on the Avengers. Well, obviously Luke Cage, Danny, Daredevil, also one of her best friends, which I find this really interesting, is Captain Marvel, also known as Carol Danvers, as most of you probably know. But yeah, her best friend is Carol Danvers, and so yeah, I think that's really cool. But this is also a run I recommend picking up, The Pulse. It has a lot of interesting stuff in here. It has the Pulse story, and then the birth of Danielle, their daughter, and when she actually worked for the Daily Bugle for J. Jonah Jameson. And I know there was a time where Jameson wanted her to find out Spider-Man's secret identity, which also brings me back to like her semi-first appearance, because even though Alias was her like first solo run, like official solo debut, but what a lot of people don't know is that she was actually a classmate of Peter Parker, aka Spider-Man. And which I find that really cool, because Spider-Man is another one of my favorite characters, and the fact that she was his classmate back at Midtown High School, that was cool. And she actually had a crush on him as well, and she was so terrified to talk to him, which I find interesting. Because knowing how Jessica is, like, just from reading the comics, she just has no fear except from what happened with Kilgrave. But like, you would expect her to be this like strong, confident person, but in all reality she's constantly battling with herself, like, all the time. And you definitely see that in the show, which I mean, if you guys want me to, I will, like, probably do a review of this Alias run at some point. And I definitely want to do a video talking about the show. But that video will be on one of our talk shows for Comic Gamer Gals with my good friend Sanimation. And we'll probably have another good friend of mine who does one of the best cosplays of Jessica Jones I've ever seen. So that will be interesting. I'm so excited for that. But anyway, there's also this run, Jessica Jones Avenger, where you see her, like, you get to see some of her time as an Avenger and as Jewel. So I recommend this one too. And I think this one also shows when she... Oh, this is after the Secret Invasion run in Marvel Comics. And it shows I think it shows her marriage ceremony to Luke Cage, and some other stuff that happens with her daughter, Danielle. So that run's definitely worth picking up. And then there's this run that came out recently, also by Brian Michael Bendis. I think it's loosely connected to the new the TV show on Netflix. Just this whole story in general is just really interesting. Then I really love this cover. With Purple Man in the background, and it's just really, really cool. And then there's this run by Kelly Thompson, which I think she did a great job with her. So if you can find this run, Jessica Jones Blind Spot, and this one, those are all the comic series I recommend if you want to get into reading Jessica Jones. And like I said, I'll probably do another video about like all the runs of Jessica Jones, which will probably be a lot longer. But I just wanted to give like a brief history and who Jessica Jones is. And I forgot to say how she got her powers. So Jessica, her entire family was killed in a car accident when they were on the way to Disney World, of all places. And turns out her father, her birth father, was working for Tony Stark. So I found that really interesting. But anyway, they were on their way to Disney World and they got into a car accident, and there was like a chemical truck that hit them, or they ran into a chemical truck and she got exposed to chemicals, and that gave her her abilities. But at the same time, she lost her entire family in that crash, which is very sad. And she ended up going into a coma for many months, which also sucks. And then she was adopted by the Jones family, and her name became Jessica Jones. And before it was Jessica Campbell. So now she became Jessica Jones after she was adopted. And then she went back to school at Midtown High with Peter and all that. So I'm sure it was very hard for her to adjust after being in a coma for all that time. And then slowly she started to realize she had superpowers. So I remember reading in the Alias run, when she first discovered her powers, she was upset, and she just slowly started to levitate off the ground. and before you know it, she was flying. So she was freaking out, and she ended up in the Hudson River, and she was saved by Thor. And so yeah. But if you guys have any other recommendations on characters that I should do in the future, just drop a comment below, and be sure to like and subscribe so you can see more awesome videos on my channel. So I want to thank you guys for watching, and I will see you next time. Peace.